There we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So the idea of this presentation is really to go through the concept of meditation, understand a little bit about what it means, understand a little bit about the different times and different places that the meditation has been through, and understand how it actually works. So at the beginning of this presentation, we're going to have a sort of theory understanding of what happens, and then the second part, we're going to have a practical experience of how to do it, how to do the things that I've been discussing. Now, I like to sort of go through the agenda a little bit. I think that I've said everything I wanted to. I'm going to talk about this crazy word called infoxication in a minute, and then I'm going to bring a context to the meditation, sort of try to organize what does it actually mean in terms of time frames and comparisons in a handy table. We're then going to look at the meditation technique itself and do the exercises as I mentioned. So let's talk about a little about this infoxication. This is a term I came to quite recently, possibly in the last 6 months, and it is about how we are today. I'm an economist. I graduated in economics in the UK when I was quite young, and the economists love talking about perfect information, how it is everywhere. And I think that more than ever, we live in this era where information is absolutely everywhere. We can find any and everything we want. But information is not knowledge. And this creates a paradox where, because information is simply everywhere, we end up being intoxicated by it as opposed to really developing knowledge out of it. And that's why I think that the distinction between information and knowledge is so important, because we need to have some tools to understand and explore the difference between these things. And this is why I like these pictures at the bottom of the slide. On the right side, all the beautiful faces that you see are not people. They have been machine created. There's a website. If you need face models, you go in and the machine, the AI, creates the photo for you. They create somebody that you're never going to have copyright issues. You can just place these people on your website and you're good. You don't have to worry. They've managed to create deep fakes, and they put Will Smith in the Matrix, for example, and it's almost you can't tell the difference. And so for us, it's very important for you to think about how to filter the information, how to evaluate these sources, and really to challenge yourself to discuss what is fake, what is credible. And I guess with this kind of introduction, I need to explain a little bit about me and am I a fake or not? Well, my name is Fabs. My name is actually Fabio, but almost nobody calls me that. And in different countries I have lived, different people have different pronunciations of my name. My grandparents used to call me Fabs, and that's the one that I like best. I I started to practice the DeRose method in 2000. In 2008, I became a teacher, and I started a school in New York. I helped start schools in London and Brazil and in different places. And in the last year, at the tail end of 2019, I decided I was ready to start a new business, and I selected Amsterdam as my new business. I was getting ready for it in February. I was packing up my bags in London, so I came to visit my best friend, somebody I've known for 30 years now, and who lives here in Portugal. And I came here in the beginning of February, and we got locked down, and I haven't been able to get out of Portugal yet. But I will be leaving at the end of the month, and I'm moving to Amsterdam and setting up this new business. In addition to that, you can see on the left side was my other life, where I spent 15 years working in the corporate world. I used to do presentations of sorts and travel everywhere. I had amassed a large amount of experience. But you may be asking yourself, what is this DeRose method thing you're talking about? Well, the DeRose method was created by this gentleman called Professor DeRose. He was born in 44, he started teaching in the 60s, he's still alive. I was talking to him yesterday. He's an author, he's a researcher, he's generally a nice guy. I actually work with him a lot because I'm translating his books into English. And so we spend a lot of time talking together and niggling over every little word. And his method is a combination of techniques and concepts. The idea is there are things you do, techniques, and ideas, concepts that come together to maximize performance. He's been at it for 60 years now, and we are in many different places. I personally own a school in New York with some other partners. I was just in London, there's schools in Paris, Rome, there's schools here in Lisbon, as well as in South America, and hopefully by the second half of the year, we're going to be in Amsterdam as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about meditation because it's one of my favorite topics and it lacks a lot of organization. As a result, there's a lot of inconsistencies, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of haziness about what it actually means and how it has changed and affected and what really is meditation nowadays. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and explain why we have so many contradictions. And I think that once I get to my table in a few slides, you guys are going to understand well why these contradictions exist. And hopefully, I'm going to be able to help you to understand and organize also in your mind how this chronology works. So the best place to start is the beginning. The first records that we have of any mention of meditation and states similar come from a very ancient civilization that not many people know of. They're called the Indus Valley Civilization. Sometimes they're called the Harappans. Sometimes they're called the Dravidians. They are in India, where actually not exactly. The frontier between India and Pakistan today is where this red blob exists. And they are contemporaries of the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, and really, really early China. If you do some research, and there's some lovely books about this civilization, you can see that they go backwards at least 5,000 years, maybe 7,000. There's a lot of controversy still, but it's a place in the world where it's really hard to do any archaeological research. The frontier between India and Pakistan is a tense place in the world. We do, however, have records from the civilization that place these techniques having existed at least some 3,000 years ago, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. The first written work that we have, the first book that has survived from this time, is actually a little bit younger. It comes from the 3rd century before the Common Era, and they refer to the state as dhyana. Dhyana is a Sanskrit term, and the language that existed in India at that time is Sanskrit, and so I try to use the original. From this, the world evolved a little bit. As humanity started to break borders, to go to different countries, to expand their concept of civilization, we saw a lot of invasions to India. We saw different concepts being taken left, right, and center. Around 800 in the Common Era, there was a massive shift in India where there was a religious wave that really changed the way that the techniques and even meditation worked. And it was heavily incorporated into the religious practices of that time. Over the centuries, again, we started to make the world smaller, and it expanded to Asia, to different parts of the globe, until eventually, in our modern times, it reached the West. And for me, this is a real landmark because it saw a globalization of this concept, but at the same time, a lot of questioning of what was happening. And it arrived in the West around the 1900s. There's a little bit of controversy if it is early, middle, pre-Great Depression, post, but generally speaking, it's about 100 to 50 years ago that it arrived in the West. And what happened was it met a very consumer-centric mentality in the US. And it turned and looked at the practices that were taking place for these techniques and wanted to simplify, to remove some aspects of it, to change the traditional approach. And it became more of what I think of, what I like to think of maybe as a product today, because the culture of our days are more about products. They are more about how you execute these product elements and how you can make things sellable. And this is more or less where we are today. In order to understand this better, I think that we can create a system of understanding. So what I do is I place meditation into these 3 different periods: our current modern era, the traditional time of around 800 in the Common Era, and then the more ancient, that is at least 1,500 years before the Common Era. Now, in order for us to dive deeper and get some true knowledge out of this concept, I like to use this table. For me, this is a really interesting table where I compare the different periods. And I'm going to compare them in different elements. So the dates that they existed, how they are communicated, what is the process that takes place, what is the key aspect of that methodology to achieve what, and what is the overriding concept and context of it. So let's start with the modern. It happened about 100 to 50 years ago. There's a little bit of confusion on this, but in terms of thousands of years, from 1 century is not going to be a lot of difference. I like to think of it today as being very much a product. It's an app. You can get it on your phone. There's so many different apps that do meditation, and it's today a very important product in the world. The most common process of executing meditation today is what is called guided, where you sit down or lie down and somebody's talking you through this process. The key aspect of the meditation, at least the way it's communicated through this productization, is an escape moment, is a moment for yourself where you are out of the noise and mess of the world and where you can relax. One of the key aspects, if you look at the communication of all the current modern elements, is this relaxation element. Moreover, there is an element of the context of this modern time being simplified from the traditional type of meditation. There's a lot of text that you can read about modern meditation that are saying that there was a wave of dissatisfaction with how secular the traditional meditation was, which takes us nicely into explaining the traditional meditation a little bit better. We know that it's about 1,200 years old, or at least the 800 the Common Era. The communication of this technique was very ceremonial. It was part of the rituals and rites of religion. The process was mostly silent, contrasting a lot with what we do today, which is more guiding through the practitioner. The key aspect of this meditation is devotion. You are always trying to connect with the religion, with the concept of God of that religion. It's become very incorporated into this process. And as a result, because of the very nature of religions, it has a little bit of a mystical, a mysterious element into this practice. Okay, welcome back. Now, if we look at the ancient, we can only estimate the date. Unfortunately, I have no time machine yet. I'd love to visit dinosaurs, then I'd love to go back to this time and see what was actually happening at that time. The way that this technique was communicated back then was very traditional, in other words, from the teacher to the student. The process that took place with the meditation was much more empirical. In other words, you executed the technique, you could talk about it, there was no mystery, it was very direct, and you had a teacher there that was supporting this process. This is very different to being told what to do or being silent, trying to be connected with greatness. The key aspect and what really differentiates the ancient meditation from the other time periods is the aspect of contemplation. Whilst one is seeking to escape from the stress of current modern reality, whilst one may be trying to connect to God, the ancient meditation was about, let's contemplate the beauty of the ocean, of nature, of the sun, of these different elements. The objective was very clear. We wanted to increase self-awareness on the people who were executing this technique. And the contest was that it's really the complete technique before it was altered and expanded on or added to in the different times. Now, I am a little bit biased because what I teach and what I work with is the ancient meditation. And this is what we're going to focus next. But it's very important for me to say that it's not because I do that I think that it's better or worse. My objective is not to convince you of anything. I just want to explain the differences so that we can understand why there's so many controversies and contradictions in this field. All right. So far, everybody's good? Awesome. We're going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the technique itself. How does it actually work? One of the quotes I love is the Einstein quote that he said he used to think so much, and it was only when he stopped thinking that the truth came to him. And to me, this is very much the aspect of the ancient meditation that is so interesting. Because the technique itself of the ancient meditation is super simple. It's all about stop thinking. If I'm going to be very technical and a teacher, then I need to say that it's about stopping the instabilities of your rationality, of your thought. And this is really what allows us to expand your level of consciousness in the ancient meditation. It does need training. This is, although some people may be born with the ability to focus, to concentrate, to be able to stop thinking, it does require training for most people, but the training is very effective. It helps us to achieve consistency in achieving the results we're looking for. It can also be catalyzed. It can be made easier because in the ancient meditation we have other techniques such as breathing, physical positions that help us to empower, to catalyze the process of stopping your thought. So let's understand how this actually works. Now, to understand this, I need to explain something else about what we mean by consciousness. And this is a really complex topic. And I'm going to try to use a simple model to help us to understand how it works. This model is based on a density relationship. In other words, each layer of this merge from the other because they have different density. The way I like to think about density is very much like the sun and the stars. At night you can see beautiful stars in the sky depending on where you live, and they are very subtle. Their light is not very strong. When the sun comes up, the stars don't vanish. They are still there, but the sun is so dense, so bright, that they disappear. And this is the concept of the relationship between something being dense versus something being subtle. Another way of looking at it could be with sounds. I'm sure that in the background you can probably hear sounds of a little bird, a dog, or a car that drives by every now and then, but my voice is much denser. So you can hear me much more clearly, but if you pay attention enough, you may be able to hear the odd bird here from the square that's in front of this apartment. Now, the very nature of these levels lead them to be stable or unstable. And what that means is that when something is unstable, it is drawing your attention. It is getting you to focus on that layer versus contrast that with stability, which means that it's like this pond here on the right. The instability is the surface of it, which doesn't allow you to see through the medium, but the stability is when the water becomes serene and allows you to see through it. Good. Now, let's understand what are these levels. And like I said, they operate in this relationship of density. At the bottom are the most dense things, at the top are the most subtle things. It starts with a physical dense. This means your body, your muscles, your skin, your bones. It's the densest element of our being. However, if this was all that you are, you would be like a rock. You would be an inanimate object. There is no energy, there's nothing going on. And so the next level of density is energy. We call this physical energy. Oops, I went one too far, but it's okay. This physical energy is what allows the chemical processes to happen in your bodies. The heat that you generate is the magnetism that you have. It's normal biological energy, so to speak. The next layer up are your emotions. And it is interesting for us to observe the difference between these. Let's say that you are sitting down at a park observing the beauty of nature, and suddenly somebody steps on your foot that's walking by. Your dense physical body becomes unstable. You feel a little bit of pain. Your dense body demands, draws your attention, it becomes unstable. And all that feeling that you had of beauty of the world, of presence in the moment, starts to vanish. All your attention is drawn to the dense physical. Does that relationship of density make sense? Good, I see some positives there. The next layer up after our emotions is our rationality. And the rationality is really difficult to explain, in my opinion. So I use the tools of your mind. They are your intellect, your logic, your associations, and your memory. So every time you are remembering a beautiful beach, every time you are associating a certain color with a certain smell or scent, or you are using some logic to work something out, you are in effect destabilizing your rationality. You're drawing your attention to it and causing it, like the surface of the water, to become a little bit ripply above your rationality. Oh, actually, another thing that's super important to explain. Oftentimes, these models are quite difficult to explain and they seem to be quite far away from people. And so what I like to think is really try to bring this back into sort of an everyday situation. I can tell you that it's happened a lot to me. I have a half brother, and oftentimes I would find myself entering in a discussion with him or having a heated debate because his napkin was on my side of the table. And when I rationalize that, I think, how stupid am I? This is like, it's a napkin. Why are we arguing? But the problem is the emotions became unstable. Somehow his actions trickled, or my actions would tickle on each other, and it would prevent from using energy at all. And so the relationship between these layers is quite interesting. In this model, the next layer up, I call personal characteristics. Some people may refer to it as an ego. I don't see them as good or bad. I just think that your personal characteristics can be really useful as long as you educate them. Uh, uh, Professor DeRose has a great sentence. He says, perfectionism is a great flaw to have. So when you want to make things perfect, it can be great or not. I have a little son. He's 5 years old. I can either try to make him perfect or I can accept him as perfectly as humanly possible, the way he is. And so the same characteristic of my personality can be expressed in a way that's either more productive or not so productive. And the final layer of this model we call intuitional. The intuitional layer is about information which is not rational. They are the things that everybody has already, I'm sure, experienced it once or twice. They are information that you know, but you can't really explain why you know it. Maybe you are in a city that you've never visited and you know that you need to go left. Maybe you have a business decision to make and you know it without being able to explain it. Whenever we have those insights, those gut feelings, that information that we have no way of saying, well, it's because I saw a map once or what, no, it's not rational, it's not a memory. I just know it. And the objective of meditation is to be able to allow you to stabilize all of these layers so that you can access this intuition on your will. So, to meditate successfully, we need to stabilize each one of those layers so that we can perceive the most subtle. Imagine the example I gave you with the sound. If we stabilize the sound of my voice, if we stabilize all the other sounds, maybe we can start to pay more attention and perceive the sound of the bird, the sound of a dog barking in the distance. That's the concept. It's very different from switching off versus achieving stability. We don't want to turn off my voice because the voice, the sounds, the other parts, the other layers of your existence will not cease existing. Well, it's different. We want to be aware of them and more. So, how do we stabilize each level? And this is why the ancient meditation to me is so interesting, because it has different techniques that help us to stabilize each one. With a dense physical, for example, we do physical positions that allow you to build more strength and flexibility so that you can stabilize the physical body for longer periods of time in a comfortable way. These techniques also help to build energy and keep it at a steady level, as opposed to having different, like drinking a coffee and feeling your heartbeat. There are techniques such as breathing that I mentioned a little bit earlier that work on your emotions. There's a very interesting technique called assimilation technique, or pratyahara in Sanskrit, which works to stabilize the emotions and hopefully leave you in a state where I don't know if it is of love or hate, but more mild, more stable, unchanging. And finally, the technique itself, which we call dhyana, is the technique that we use to stabilize the rational. How do we do that? Well, the silencing of the mind goes through a two-step process. The first one is called dharana, which helps us to quieten the mind, and the secret is in the translation of the word. It's the ability to concentrate. It is a skill that you learn. Although this word concentration has been used left, right, and center, and maybe it's a little bit peculiar how people define concentration, focus, it is a skill that you are just keeping your mind at a certain thing. You are focusing on it. You are remaining on it. And this allows us to actually perceive a lot more of what's going on. Once you manage to stay focused, stay concentrated for some time, you enter the state of dhyana, which allows us access to our intuition. And so the meditation happens when we genuinely silence the mind, when we can stay in this quiet for a length of time. And it's an expansion of your awareness. You are aware of each one of those layers, plus additional intuition. And this is why in the teaching process a teacher was so important, because a teacher was able to observe from the outside and see the challenges that you were having and help to navigate and accelerate the process over time. However, as I mentioned before, the ancient meditation is an empirical process. And so if we're going to understand it fully, we need to do it. So what I'd like us to do now is to actually execute one of the exercises to help us to understand and comprehend a little bit better what we mean by concentration, dharana. To do that, all you need to do is to make sure that you are comfortable. Relax your arms, sit down in a very comfortable position, and just close your eyes for a little bit of time so that we can diminish the distractions from your vision. Over the next few moments, I want you just to stay quiet, to listen to my voice. It is very important that you stay throughout the exercise always lucid and awake, so that you can filter all you hear and accept only what you wish. Today, we're going to do an exercise that's called dharana. It is focused on numbers. I would like you to imagine, on your right side, the number 1. Just like the numbers you've been seeing, just like the words you've been seeing on this page, it is a black number on a white background. Imagine this number 1. Imagine this number rising. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Keep going. Try to see how quickly you can rise them and how far you can go. You can stop when you reach the number 100. Or if you got lost, if you can't really clearly see the number and you get lost, don't worry. Reset the number back to 1, take a deep breath, and try again. If my voice distracts you, it's because your concentration isn't trained enough yet. In the near future, you're going to be able to hear my voice and execute this exercise without distractions. Try to keep concentrating, train your mind. Oftentimes, we don't notice how distracted we get so quickly. Very good. Reset this number on your right back to the 1. On your left, I want you to see the same white background, but this time you're going to see the number 100. With this number, we're going to go down. And so imagine 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91, 90, 88, 89, 88, 87, and keep going. Try to go all the way down to the number 1. If at any moment you lose concentration, don't worry, just return this number back to 100 and start again. Great. Now is where things are going to get interesting. I would like you to reset the number 100 back, then on your left, the number 1 on your right. And we're going to make these two numbers move together. Beware, do not use mathematics. Just observe the numbers even if you go very slowly and vary them together. Like this: 1, 100, 2, 99, 3, 98, 4, 97, 5, 96, 6, 95. Keep going. You can go as quickly or as slowly as you wish. This number technique can be done by you as many times as you wish, as often for as long as you want. If at any moment even my voice, any other sound distracts you, don't worry. Simply return back to the numbers 1 and 100 and start to flash them again, to change them, to rise the right side, to lower the left. If you will get distracted, if you have to reset a lot of times, don't worry. What I would like you to do, though, is remember the highest number you've managed to reach on your left, the lowest number you managed to reach on your right. No, the other way around. The highest number on your right, the lowest number on your left. Take a deep breath and return from this exercise, opening your eyes so that we can observe ourselves a little bit on this technique. It is very normal if you lost concentration, if it was difficult, and even if it was very easy. Some people are naturally gifted with numbers, and maybe like me, they spent a long time in Excel in their lives, and they find numbers very easy. This is what we call dharana. It's an exercise to test your concentration and to help you to observe if you are able to maintain it for more than a few numbers, for more than a second, to get to 10 seconds, to get to 100 seconds maybe. This is a very interesting exercise. Like that, we have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have a book with around 50 or 56 of these exercises to train our concentration, because it's really important for the exercise we're going to do next. This next exercise is going to be a little bit more complex, because we're going to put together all the different elements. We're going to bring in the technique to help us to stabilize the emotion and to quieten the mind. Before I start, does anybody have any questions, any comments, any doubts? No, we're all good? Cool. All right, so let's get started with the second exercise. What I'd like you to do is to stay completely comfortable. Close your eyes once again and just take a moment to observe the way you are breathing. Breathing techniques are one of the core fundamentals of the Rose method and of what we're doing. And so over the next few moments, just try to release tensions and concentrate on inhaling and exhaling slowly. In our method, we only breathe with the nostrils, and so make sure that you, when you inhale and when you exhale, you're using exclusively your nostrils. Try to observe how much air you capture. Try to observe yourself in this technique. Let's make this technique a little bit more interesting. When you inhale, project your abdominal muscles out. This is going to give your lungs more space to expand, allowing you to capture more air in each breath. When you exhale, contract your abdominal muscles. This will compress your lungs and make sure that the air that is already there is going out, so that your next breath can be even more oxygen rich. This breathing with your abdomen is very important because around 60% of the capacity of your lungs is there. And so today, if you learn nothing else, focus on breathing with your abdomen. Inhale slowly, deeply, and push your abdominal muscles out. As you exhale, contract your abdominal muscles, pulling them inwards, so that you can expel all the air, as much of the air as possible from your lungs, so that your next breath can be even more oxygen rich. Good. Take another slow, deep breath. Try to count how many seconds it takes for you to inhale. Observe yourself. Observe how you feel. Observe how you are performing. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, release tensions. Allow your shoulders to relax. Relax all of your body. Good. Take another deep breath. This time I like you to go even slower. Try to count 4, maybe 5 seconds to inhale all of the air, to expand your abdominal muscles fully. And then as you exhale, try to count also 4, maybe 5 seconds, contracting your abdominal muscles so that you can expel all of the air. This breathing with your abdomen we call, appropriately, abdominal breathing. There is different ways of breathing, for example, with your rib cage and even your chest. And when you add all of these together, we call that complete breathing, and it is one of the most important elements that we train in our classes. The next time you inhale, I want you to take another very deep breath, and as you exhale, you're going to conclude this short breathing exercise and training so that we can move on to the next portion, the relaxation aspect. Continue to hear my voice. Continue to breathe slowly and deeply through your nostrils if you can. As you inhale, imagine that you are feeling the movement of your abdomen. As you exhale, mentalize that you relax. The most important element of this technique is that you remain lucid, awake, to hear everything I am saying, so you can filter and accept and assimilate only what you wish. Take another deep breath and relax as you exhale. Try to observe your body relaxing every time you exhale. Try to relax your skin, your muscles, your nerve cells, even your bones. Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine that you are relaxing your toes, your feet, your skin and muscles, your nerve cells. Imagine that you relax your heels and ankles, your calves, your knees and thighs. It is very normal if you start to feel that these limbs are becoming light, that you are relaxing more and more. Imagine now that you relax your gluteus and your internal organs, starting with the organs in the pelvic region. Relax the organs in your abdomen. Relax even your lungs and your heart. Release the tensions from your torso, from your back. Relax the back itself and all the muscles along your vertebrae, removing the tensions from your shoulders, arms and forearms, hands and fingers. Relax now your neck and all of the muscles on your face. Release your tensions, relax your lips, allow them to part gently, relax your tongue inside your mouth. Release the tensions from your cheeks, your eyebrows. Your forehead becomes free of wrinkles as you relax even your scalp and your ears. The objective of this exercise is to release tensions, to help us to stabilize further and further the emotional layer. As you are comfortable in your position, the physical dense layer is very still, very stable. Your levels of energy as you relax remain very stable. And so it is now time for us to stabilize the emotions. Imagine that you are in a beautiful location. Today, I would like you to imagine that you are at a beach. It is almost as if you can smell this perfume of the ocean. In the distance, you hear the sounds of the waves. In your skin, you can feel a comfortable temperature of the air. And the colors all around you are beautiful. The ocean is crystal clear. The sand is white and soft. The sky above has a few clouds, contrasting the blue with the odd white. Good. Imagine yourself in this location. Imagine this beautiful beach. Imagine that you are absolutely comfortable, enjoying this beautiful place. At this moment, your attention is grabbed by the waves in front of you. As they approach the beach, as they break and rise up the shore, and then return back again. Observe the waves as they rise and fall. And with this motion, you gain a powerful insight that the discipline of the ocean is amazing. It has been trying to climb up the shores for millennia, and it never gives up. With this insight, it is now time for you to begin your return from this technique so that we can effectively execute the meditation exercise next. To return is going to be very gradual and yet very effective. At first, I would like you to begin to awaken your senses. Begin to hear better all of the sounds that surround you, including the sounds of my voice. Take a slow, deep breath and smell the perfumes of the place you are at, of your home. Take another deep breath and feel the movement of your torso. Begin to add to this movement with your fingers, your toes, your hands and feet, your arms and legs if you wish. Move your tongue inside your mouth. Open your eyes and if you want, stretch, twist. You may even yawn. Keep your eyes open and I would like you to look at the next image. In order for us to execute dhyana, we need to concentrate on something. This can be a sound or an image, and today I've selected this image. Observe this image until you are sure that you can close your eyes and remain with it before you. Over the next few moments, I want you to simply contemplate this image. If you'd like to close your eyes and retain this image in your mind, you can. If you'd like to keep your eyes open, observing this image and contemplating it, you can. The important thing is that any moment that you notice that your attention is not here, for you to simply bring it back, to focus, to meditate. All right, take a very slow, deep breath, returning your consciousness to this moment, concluding this exercise, and moving your body if you wish. Very good. I want to talk about 3 more things before I wrap up. The first one is to understand how do we have success. The next one is to talk about a book that I've actually translated and I'd like to give you, and talk about next steps. So let's go quite quickly. How do we know if we had success? Well, the key to success in ancient meditation and others is your perception of time. Humans are aware almost all of the time of their physical, their levels of energy, their emotions, and their thoughts. When we add another layer of information, such as your intuition, your brain gets overloaded and your perception of time changes. The more you perceive, the slower time feels like. In contrast, when you go to sleep and you no longer perceive your body, you no longer perceive your emotions, you're simply sleeping, you feel less, and therefore time seems to fly. That is why when we sleep for maybe what feels like 5 minutes and it's been hours, if you are successful in this technique, you have done this exercise for a minute, which is what we did, and it would have felt like 10 minutes. Don't worry if you didn't feel this way yet, but use this as a measure. If you do this exercise for 10 minutes and it feels like 1 minute has passed, maybe something is not quite right. Be aware of this, because it can be a sign of self-hypnosis. Another key reason why we need to have a teacher to help us to understand and not fall into any pitfalls. For those of you guys here that are here, I've taken a screenshot of your names and I'm going to send you in Internations a copy of the book I've translated. It's a book that Professor DeRose wrote about the systems of meditation and self-knowledge, and I think you're going to quite like it. It's a PDF book. In the moment, he has prints of bilingual version, but I've managed to procure just the English one so that you guys can read and understand how it works. All right, so before I wrap up, let's just briefly talk about what next steps could be done. I love the meditation. I've been doing it since 2000. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. And my recommendation is that when you do it, it is all about being more present, having more purposeful life. And to do that, we cannot get out of doing some training. The minimum amount of training I recommend is just 2 minutes in your day. 1 minute when you wake up, 1 minute before you go to sleep. As you've experienced with this technique, it doesn't take much. All you need to do is to quieten yourself a little bit and maintain your focus of concentration on something. If you'd like, I can even send you the image that we used today, and the more you train it, the easier it becomes. However, just 2 minutes per day is not a lot, and that's why I called it a minimum. Another better alternative would be to do 10 minutes. 2 minutes breathing, 2 minutes relaxing, and then 1 minute meditating. So in essence, you get the same as you had above, but with the other 2 techniques together, the efficiency and the effect of this technique is going to be much bigger. If you do those 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, you're going to get a lot of value. Now, I wouldn't be here talking, I wouldn't be learning, and I wouldn't be sharing what I do if I didn't talk about the best alternative, which I think is to work with the company that I'm building, with the DeRose Method Amsterdam. What does that mean? Well, what we do is we combine theory with practice. In other words, we have a practical evolution process in which we have meditation and mindfulness classes to train very similarly to what we did, and we have other body and meditation classes that are a little bit longer that also train your body, that train your levels of energy. We also have loads of webinars like this one, workshops and courses, and a whole lot of other elements on this. And we are currently online, and for the very near future we're going to be so, but hopefully I'm going to be in the pipe very, very soon and be able to rent places and work out all the intricacies of starting a business in the Netherlands. Often the way we work is with small groups. I don't like to work with sort of crowds. I prefer to work with people that I know their names and work very deeply. We like to work with about 6 people. And for you guys here, we can talk over the next few moments, but I'd like to offer you at least a week working with me so you can experience for yourself what these classes feel like and how it works. All right. Do you have any questions? This is it for my presentation. Thank you for joining. If you need to go, I appreciate that I've almost blown my time. I'm quite happy to let you go. And if you have questions, please unmute yourself and ask away. It's a pleasure, Elsbeth. I hope you liked it. It's a pleasure, Mani. I'm happy that you took some value out of it. If you like, I can share the presentation with you. And like I said, I'll send you in the internations a copy of this PDF book, and hopefully you enjoy that too. Kathleen, Caroline, any questions, any doubts?
Yeah, thank you, Fabs. Sorry, but my internet was not very stable, so I went on, off, and I was not present all the time. But I
I
like the
noticed. It's
technique.
okay.
Since you are on the internations, I already watched the exercises. For me, they are very difficult, but they are challenging, and this is one thing I like. But it's working. I do the stretching in the morning, and I do the breathing as well with my legs up. So it's very nice. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that before I started to do these techniques, before I even began the process of working with the DeRose method, I was quite a stressed person. I was living in New York. I was out of university, and I believed that to have success in the world, you needed to be aggressive. I used to slam doors and shout at people. And through this process, I've learned that nothing could be further from success than being that way. Of course, you need to have aggressiveness. I want to be aggressive in the way I do my marketing, not in the way I deal with people. I want to be aggressive in my objectives, not in human relationships. And this method helped me to turn everything around. And I started practicing, I think it was 2000, so I must have been 24. And by the time I was 32, I was hired by a 4 billion euro company to be their global vice president in charge of 86 countries. It worked. It is a position I held for 6 years. So I feel like this is an amazing method, and nothing pleases me more than being able to share it, because it's done so much for me. I think that's the least I can do.
Okay, thank you. And yes, I would
Pleasure.
appreciate also the book and exercises when you are coming to Amsterdam.
Awesome. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Caroline, did you have any questions?
No, thank you. It was very clear and yeah, good. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, guys, I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you soon.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye.